Thank you. Thank you for a bit too much of the honor. I thank you for inviting this stranger to your community, and I'm really glad to be here, and I'm sorry not to be able to address you in Norwegian. Takk. I will take you on a small tour with the next few slides, which branches off what you've been discussing this morning, because I will go a bit beyond technology, and I think at the end I can show you that this links in many places to what you've been discussing this morning. First of all, I would like to introduce where I come from. I work for Festo in Germany. Festo is a family-owned business, and this is an important item of my talk, because what I believe to be knowing today, I would not have found if I had worked for a company on a stock market, which is noted in the stock market. The family brings a different perspective to business, has a different perspective on its employees, and has a longer strategic outreach. So it wants the next generation to still be in the business, which is different from me being a CEO of a public company having to survive for years. You see some figures there. One may be of interest to you. 19% of the sales is reinvested in education and R&D, which is quite high a number. And we consider ourselves to be interwoven with our customers. Our customers' interests are our interests. We need to understand what will be their factory tomorrow. We provide them with automation equipment and components that should and have to fit into their world. And at the same time, we have an own production with all the problems you addressed this morning, which has to survive in a high-wage country. To show you that I'm not just saying hollow words, on the right side, you see what is called technology. This is a factory where the owners of Festo decided consciously to have this built close to Esslingen in a high-wage country. This is still a CAD picture, but it will go into operation this spring, so the building is finished, the things are moving in. And you have the automation center on the right, which is our the center for the German sales department, and this will go into operation also in Esslingen, consciously built there after the Hannover Fair this spring. The ingredients for a family business, and I'm not coming to you as a German preacher. I know that you have companies that work on the same principle. There are other companies in Europe that work on these principles. If you are a coffee drinker, you may know Alessi. Alessi sent his employees to do community work in times when he was having not so much business. So this thinking is not German, but it is a family-directed outline. And here I just want to say what we've been going through recently. We defined values as our values. You can see that they are rather simple. The complicated picture on the left is an S, which shows the way to the first we, which is our vision, where we want to go, and the values are our boundary conditions under which we want to achieve them. This looks simple. It is based on a survey of some 100 proverbs throughout the world to find out what values are valid in what community, so that a global company, as Festo is, does not pick German values which are not valid in Norway or in China. My goal today is a bit to speak about sustainability. The Brundtland, the Danish Prime Minister, has made a historic statement that will be valid for years to come.
Did you really mean Danish?
I think Danish. Brundtland was Danish. Was not?
Norwegian.
Norwegian? I'm sorry.
It was a nice job.
I'm really sorry. No, this is embarrassing. But I thank you for the correction, because I will come back to this in a minute later. But the statement is historic and describes the challenge we are facing. We want to meet the needs of the present without compromising the needs of the future generation, which is a big word. Sustainability has three aspects: global, social, and ecological. In the ecological side, we have been working for the last 20 years. A company that is economic-wise sustainable may be endangering all the other sustainability aspects easily, because it is just focusing then maybe on the profit, not on the people and not on the country. In the manufacturing area, this is a grand challenge for Europe. You need to know that manufacturing is the source of 2/3 of our income in Europe. 2/3 of jobs are depending on manufacturing, either directly in manufacturing or in service-related jobs, and they provide jobs, welfare, and social security. And to the social security part, I come back in a minute. In other words, in the triangle sociology, ecology, and economy, any measure taken, so you have a measure in there, is influencing the global scale. Our globe is depending that this is in balance. If we are out of balance by any means we take, then our systems are in serious danger. The question is and this is related to the manufacturing and all the technology issues you discussed this morning, where do you want to be as an engineer or an employee in the future? And the question is, what do we do with the rest? So we kind of restrict manufacturing to fewer and fewer and fewer people, but we have to answer consciously, what do we do with the rest? And if you link back to the beautiful artistic performance this morning, if you're tired of me, I don't want to be answered just with a twinkling of an eye. This has to be given clear reasons and clear strategies. The underlying concept is, where do we want, or what is our imagination of our factory in the future? Is it an autonomous entity that is out in the green, working completely automatic? So delivery of raw materials comes by autonomous trains, cars. The design rules are downloaded from the internet, and the internet order and the outroll to the customer is going on automatically. Of course, it has to be a well-tuned economic process, but the economic process can have quite a bandwidth of what is possible and what is not possible. But as engineers, we are taught and told and taught to think things to the end. We cannot just say, yes, we do this in automation, and of course it creates jobs. We need to pinpoint which jobs, for what salary, and in what part of the society. At the moment, in many cases, we say, yes, it creates, but we do not go and do not take the care to go all the way and say where and when and why. So is the future worker the guy that is sitting out on the lake, like out here on the beautiful lake, and fishing while the company is running? Or how do we use human capacities in order to keep this machine running? And if you look at a PC over there, without any human here in the room, it is not more than a device that can dissipate heat for maybe the next 6 hours, and then it will be dead and don't do anything. You as humans have much more, or we as humans have much more capacities and abilities which we should make use more consciously. If you look at the OECD, you find a global well-feeling index, and you see that Norway is at the second position here, and you find many things like that in the internet indicating that your society is really taking care of that. And so I excuse myself again to put Brundtland away from your country. I'm really sorry for that, because it shows that you have and this shows also the conference here, you have a community where you exchange between industry, politics, and academia in a way where you want to solve problems and not just maximize one industrial aspect or one academic aspect. Some of them, and this is the arguments I heard over the last day, you link that to your oil and your gas, but there are many other countries that produce oil and gas and which have no life well-feeling index as you here in Norway, so there are different reasons. I am aware that I'm here in an area where you have an industry park with high innovation potential and high innovation activities. I had a short visit this morning briefly to some very, very interesting companies. Nevertheless, I will challenge you a bit on the innovation part. For sustainability needs more than just innovation. And innovation is not just a nice technology you invent and then you are done. Innovation is a process which is time-consuming, and as technology alone, without the appropriate organization, it will not be anything and it will not innovate. And what we as humans very often forget is our consciousness of time. Can you remember what you did 10 years ago? Today, 10 years ago? I would have to check my computer. I was most likely with my kids skiing because at that time they were still small. Can you predict what will happen in 1 year? For a long time, I consciously sat down at Christmas, wrote on a piece of paper 3 words, what I would expected from my year ahead, and then checked that 1 year later, and you find a high disagreement with what you thought 1 year ago. This is number one. So when we talk about transformation processes, on innovation, on technology, on academia, we often forget that they are long-term processes. And the other thing is we have no feeling for exponential growth or exponential degradation. You may recall the story of this king, and this was well before the computer was invented. He wanted to reward a guy because he had done a very good job. And this person said, "Oh, king, I would like you to look at this chessboard in front of me, and you put on the first field 1 grain of corn, and then you put on the second field 2 pieces, and on the third one 4 pieces. So you double from field to field." The king started to laugh and said, "Oh, why didn't you ask for more? Why didn't you?" If you check the example, you will find that we have not enough grain on the world to fulfill the requirement. This is what is behind exponential growth or failure. And if we link that to our CO2 problematic or other problems where we know today we have a slight deviation from, but we also know that the development is according to an exponential function. I would like to give you 3 reasons why I think sustainability matters and needs really attention, and in the end it will be also economic profitable. So I strongly believe, my contact to the company I've worked for a long time, and its success is based on the fact that social sustainability was put high on the agenda. At the same time, if you look at Europe today, I think it has changed some facets dramatically, which must make us look deeper into the social context. And I will focus on social sustainability in manufacturing. There is an internal side, so the employees of a company inside are interested in social sustainability. At the same time, the people in the company are part of the society outside, so the borders are not strict. The pressure from and on society has risen dramatically. I will give you 3 reasons, and they need answers in the political space. So the company alone will not solve it, the society alone will not solve it. If you have this community where you can discuss this, you have a chance. So there are 3 reasons which are well known. The financial crisis, in my view, definitely is not over. The amounts of debt in question are so high that none of us really can imagine what it means. The obvious discrepancy between poor and rich is growing wider. And I'm not going back to the lamento we had for years, but for me, if you look at our supply chains, I can speak for Germany, I cannot speak for Norway. Many of the ends of these supply chains are literally slavery. So I can make my buy of meat in the supermarket as cheap as I can because we have Romanian butchers that work for 3 hours, for €3 an hour in some almost camp. So, and usually you do not discuss that. Our sales people in the shops have dropped their salary by a factor of 2. So this gap is obviously increasing to a measure where we have to give it a thought. The wars carried into our house, the security issue is often neglected. Ukraine is a very serious question, but some of the terroristic acts we have seen just recently show that we are not living on a safe island somewhere, and we keep the wars at the other end of the world. And this is also linked with our own social satisfaction. Do we have a group of people in our country that is really convinced this is the country you want to live? If you look at Germany and France, we have 1,000 people in Germany and 1,000 people in France that were so desperate that they allowed brainwashing to go to IS fighting in the Near East, because then they thought when they are killed they will be in heaven. Our own people in our own society, so desperate, so not understanding where they are living or what values we stand for, that they do something like that. So this consciousness in society is rising. You can observe it on the German streets right now, every week. At the moment it is still linked to the feeling that we have too many strangers, which is statistically completely wrong. But the reasons below are more pressing. So social insecurity. We have many people that face poverty when they retire because their pension fund is not high enough. The need of the old to care in the homes for them is not so much given. Naked Man is a provocation because the amount of data that is available on each of us in the internet allows people to come to a business meeting where you go to negotiate your next treaty, and the other side knows who you are, why you are, what are you interested, what are your tricks in the business, just by safety of data communication we have today. And threat of terror and health is serious, so we see the epidemic in Africa, which is not any longer just far away in Africa, but has concrete threats for Europe. All this kind of surfaces in the public consciousness in many places today. You can see it in the elections, you can see it in decisions, you can see it in demonstrations, you can see it even in Sweden half a year or a year ago when people in Stockholm went on the street for fighting. So this is rising. It is not outspoken, it is not understood completely, but it is a mixture that leads to actions. What can we do? I think we can, on the other side, recognize that and do something for the social sustainability to counter that. The social security can be dramatically increased by job creation, and we need to reinvent our business. We need to reinvent how we run our business, decide consciously why we employ more, not less people. And we have just starting to think about that. This is research. It is not, you cannot blame any company because of the way that it is run today, but we need to go beyond. And if I say we need to go beyond, you have to be a bit patient with me. I've been for a long time working for future technology, so I'm used to move in spaces where many people say, no, this is not my business, or my business is today, what are you talking about? I can see this discrepancy, but I still need to address that. Business development is one of these things. The innovation paradigm on the test bed is meant we need to understand the time scale of innovation. We need to understand not just to talk politically for 2 years on hype innovation A, B, or C, but we need to pursue that on a long run. And our education, at least in Germany, is in bad need of improvement to understand industrial needs on the one hand, and general education on the other hand. If you make tests on our street, for instance, a radio station went out and asked, what is the capital of Holland? And the next question was, what is the capital of the Netherlands? And the result was devastating. What we have recognized is, and this is spread in Europe as well as in America, we need to reindustrialize, which means we need to reinforce our manufacturing and understand our manufacturing. This is an ongoing process, but I want to show you that the strategic action needs vision and persistence. By a European project, we have covered a survey, interviewed 240 companies in Europe, asking what time scales and what conditions are necessary to introduce a important technology. There they talk about key enabling technologies, but if you talk about a key technology, if you're in business, you have key technologies employed, I'm sure. If you look on how long it took it to be developed to the stage that you use it today, you will find time spans from 10 to 20 years. So if you say you have a technology with which you want to innovate and revolutionize your business, it will be in that time span. Two other things are important, and this links in a way back to what your minister said this morning. On the one hand, you need entrepreneurial courage. You cannot do that in an administrative way. It needs people that say, yes, we go that way, and then you still fail, and yes, we go that way. And I said, we go this way, no further questioning. And I put my money on that table and we pursue. And in many cases, this is the only way to success. Strategic projects, when a new technology arises at the academic level, are very helpful. So any research activities and strategies are very helpful to educate the people to understand, to find the boundary conditions, how to use the technology in the first place, is at a very early stage. If you look and compare that provocatively to you paying into the pension fund, it takes 25 years to develop the technology. And if you start with the technology, are involved in the starting point, about 30 to 45 years later, you will go into pension. And this is the time span you can pay into the fund and make a living later. So this is interlinked. Social sustainability needs the willingness to take on the long-term perspective. If you are on a ROE trip, having back your return of investment next year, the communication is broken immediately. I will show you and go through this quickly. There are some interesting mechanisms along this technology path. So at first, it will create people that can give advice, people that have the vision why we need this technology, but it doesn't really create business yet. Then startups and SMEs will pick up, but this is already later. And then big companies may jump in, and you see that the value creation for the society, and that's a point for social sustainability, is at first incremental, and it takes 10 to 20 years before it gets big business. You can take any business you have here in Norway. I can tell you immediately 5 businesses in Germany where this exactly happened. This technology was implemented. It took a long time and persistence to go through, and finally it picks up to be a big business. Next slide, and this is addressing a project, a European project on social sustainability. The question was whether we can find conditions on how this little guy in the middle, the yellow guy, has a chance to balance his social sustainability between the society case and the industrial case. If you are employed in any company, it is clear the rules in the company will to a high degree determine what is possible and what is not possible. And if you think on any non-democratic country, you easily can understand that also the conditions in the society can be such that this guy has no chance at all. When I started to work in that field, I thought you only have to overcome the first financial barrier. So the company has to make a decision on the financial side so that you have a chance to come up with social security or the sustainability. But the project result is really surprising. If you are involved in reporting on corporate responsibility or CSR mechanisms, you will know that there are procedures out there like the Global Reporting Index. It has some 195 key performance indicators by which sustainability of the company can be measured. And when we started out, we reduced that, or the colleagues in Tampere at the university reduced that to 11 dimensions in which we would want to look, or in which we would suspect that the social sustainability in a company shows up. And the result, after a survey of 8 companies, so it's a small survey, but still we were able to send a questionnaire to companies and to a European-wide poll. So we sent the poll also to email addresses which we had bought and where the recipients had agreed in advance to allow for that sending. We got 1,000 answers back. And it shows a very for me, very surprising interdependency. A company that goes for social care and work-life well-being may be recognized by its employees, but it is not likely to be social sustainable. So this alone is not sufficient to reach it. If you go beyond that and you see impact direction to success on the right, if you achieve that your employees are loyal and identify with the company, then you have made a big progress. And beyond that, if you formulate a mission and have communication and learning, and finally make a sustainability strategy in place, then you have a real chance to be social sustainable for your employees. And the big result here is that these companies were economically more successful than, or are more successful economically than its competitors. So we have no more excuse to not really work into the direction of social sustainability, because it also helps the business. I want to conclude what I've been trying to describe you is work over, say, the last 10 years, where I first staggered in a very dark room. The technology study is recent, and this is very recent, but I found support for my theories and a pace where I never would have dreamed to find it. You see up there the name Katharina Knorr. She is professor in Konstanz, and she did a long time study on foreign currency exchange. So she sat next to the guys that sit in Zurich in a bank in front of a PC and who are trading foreign currencies. And this guy does not know his business partner by name or by person or by anything. He has 3 or 4 signs, A, B, C, X, and nothing more. And his business obviously is to make as much profit as he can. And the most successful ones in that business were the ones that tried to sustain the business, so they wouldn't go for any profit at the maximum, but they would consider, is it sustaining my business, and work on ethical principles. And I've never dreamed to find it there. And I think if we work to sustain our business, we have a good chance. I thank you, and I think I overspent some time. I again excuse myself for Mrs. Brundtland. All the best now.